One of the perennial issues for executives is always, how do we execute our strategy successfully? Or how do we execute large-scale projects that are going to make a significant impact on our bottom line? In days gone past, we would develop our strategy. That would take a relatively long period of time. That would be an annual process in which we would ideally create a strategy, build a budget around that, and then fund a series of initiatives to achieve those strategies or projects as appropriate. And in that process, what we would attempt to do is, over a period of months, even years, to connect everyone throughout the organization to that strategy, that budget, and so forth, such that everyone had line of sight to the strategy and what they're trying to accomplish, and hopefully have clarity of purpose in terms of how they contribute to what the organization's trying to achieve. Now, those core ideas are still very valid today. However, the clock speed, if you will, the speed at which organizations are moving, the speed at which the competitive environment is moving, makes that long process relatively slow given the conditions in which we face in the marketplace today. What organizations need to do today, and we sort of draw a leaf out of Eric Ries's work of the Lean Startup here, is start to think differently in terms of how they execute. And we've coined a term that we call hyper-mobilisation. And what hyper-mobilisation is all about bringing together expert resources from inside and outside the organization, often including customers, suppliers, and other stakeholders in the organization's ecosystem, to work on very specific projects, programs, or, if you will, strategic initiatives that need to be executed very quickly to help the organization meet the market, or ideally beat the market. And that happens in very fast cycles. And hypermobilization is not about creating consensus and, if you will, buy-in across a broad base. It's about bringing together talent and focusing it very carefully on a set of issues to be addressed to help the organization rapidly achieve results, redeploy those resources over time on new and more difficult challenges as time flows by. Hypermobilization requires a different type of leadership, whereby we begin to assemble and disassemble talent, assemble and disassemble capital, assemble and disassemble organizations, assemble and disassemble elements of the ecosystem more and more quickly on the critical issues facing the organization, the market, the competitive situation, or the customer's challenges and problems. And hypermobilization requires us to operate at a much, much higher pace. We think in terms of weeks, months, not years, not what we used to have was the 1, 3, 5 year short-range, mid-range, long-range planning. Hypermobilization requires essentially a 100-day focus where we're experimenting, where we're deploying resources, where we're learning, redeploying, and ultimately moving the organization at the pace of a startup. So for incumbent organizations that are well established and have built a long tradition of systems and processes about being relatively slow and inflexible to change, this is a very serious weakness as compared to more nimble insurgent startups or more nimble insurgent players in the marketplace that can come in, make decisions very quickly, deploy resources quickly, and achieve an outcome before you've even gotten out of the gate. Our hypermobilization process is a new way to think about strategy execution in terms of how to get your organization spun up to achieve a goal very quickly without all of the, if you will, the overhead that gets in the way of the traditional planning process.